Hi, everyone. So I work for BAE Systems Digital Intelligence, and today I'm going to have a little talk to you guys about what being a data scientist is like, and particularly what being a data scientist working for the Ministry of Defence looks like. So just a little bit about me to start off with. Secondly, I'm going to talk about some of our tech opportunities within BAE Systems. I'm then going to give a bit of an example of what machine learning is, what artificial intelligence is, and what it actually looks like in the corporate world. Fourthly, what is it like working in the Defence AI Centre? So that's my client at the moment. We help the Army, the RAF, the Special Forces, and the Navy do things with data better. So what does that actually look like? And then we'll move on to some questions at the end. But feel free to, I'll pause along the way. So if anyone's got any specific questions for me, then I'll be happy to answer them along the way. So a little bit about me, just to get started. I've worked at BAE Systems now for just over 4 years. But before that, kind of did my A-levels, much like a lot of you here. I studied maths at the University of York. I then went to Imperial to do a master's in applied maths, which is kind of where my love for data science began, where I studied data science a little bit. I then started working at BAE Systems as a graduate, so on our kind of graduate scheme. And then from there, I've worked for 4 years. I'm now a principal data scientist at BAE Systems. So I want to get a feel for who I've got in the audience. So put your hand up if you have not done a STEM degree. Excellent. Loads of hands. Good. And the whole point I asked that question is because you don't have to do a STEM degree to work in tech. And I really want to make that point clear. I have so many colleagues who are software engineers, data scientists, business analysts working in the same projects as me and have done law degrees or geography degrees or degrees that have nothing to do with tech in any way, shape or form, but they are still kind of front and center on a lot of our digital transformation projects. So what do BAE Systems do? I'm sure some of you might have spoken to our friends over on the stand behind me, but what do we actually do as a business? So a lot of people know us for building submarines, aircraft, naval ships, but that's essentially our bread and butter, but we also have a cyber unit. So we're all about protecting our nation, and our vision is, get to the next slide. So we exist to protect and enhance the connected world. So we work primarily with the private sector, so governments across the world, not just in the UK, to protect their systems and also to defend their data, essentially. So I work for part of the company called Digital Intelligence. So this is our consultancy, and we work with the government to tackle different data problems and also how to help legacy systems transform in the digital age. So a lot of our government systems have been around for a very, very long time, and it takes a while to bring them to the point we need them to be at to actually make a difference and help our people actually drive that digital change. So how do we operate? I mentioned earlier that I'm a consultant myself. So we have 3 different business units. So we've got Defence Digital Services, we've got National Security and Law Enforcement, and we've also got Central Government. And we also have consultants, engineers, project management, and other management jobs. So in terms of career options, we have options for a range of different levels. So 1-year placements if you're still at university, internships that you can do in between studying, so in your summer, graduate programs, and again, I'll just reiterate that point. any background is something that you could work at a company like BAE Systems at. So I'm just going to pause there. Has anyone got any questions specifically about career opportunities or BAE Systems in general? Cool. OK, I'm going to move on. So I'm going to talk a little bit about data and what it's like to work in data. So I've got a few buzzwords on the right-hand side that you might see. So big data is all about having large volumes of data coming in at a very high velocity. So as an example, that's something like a cybersecurity unit is constantly monitoring network traffic. You've got thousands and thousands of elements of data coming in. How do we analyze that? Data science. That's all about working very closely with our end users to understand what statistical technique will fix their problem, essentially. So it's the art of problem solving. And finally, artificial intelligence is a big buzzword, and a lot of people throw it around willy-nilly. But I guess artificial intelligence encompasses a lot of different things, machine learning, different statistical techniques. But you can see in the graph there, neural network, for instance, is one example. Facial recognition, driverless cars, they all have some artificial intelligence model sitting under the hood. And being able to train those and build platforms to enable those is also something that BAE Systems do. So for those of you who are slightly techie or interested in AI, I'm going to run through an example of an experiment that I did back when I was a graduate at BAE Systems, and just run you through some of the results that I got out of that. So before I start, just going to give you a brief overview of what a neural network is. So I touched upon this as one example of artificial intelligence. So they essentially look like a network, as you can see in that diagram here. They've got inputs, they've got outputs, they've got nodes, and you might hear the phrase deep learning network being referenced. That's just any network that has more than 3 layers. So essentially, the network learns by passing data to these nodes, and kind of keeps doing that again and again until you reach a certain threshold, in which case the network has completely learned and you get that as an output. So the project that I did quite a few years ago now was an example of a pattern of life. So this technique is all about finding patterns in behavior. So what we did was we took a dump of New York taxi data set. So we had a data set that was completely open source, and it was all about taxi journeys, when they started, when they ended, where they went, how much a taxi cost. And what we were trying to do is figure out which taxi journeys were a bit strange. So which taxi journeys were unusual or were giving us unusual behavior. So up at the top, you can see a bit of a pipeline of how we tackled that first problem. So we chucked in a few features or input data, which you can see there on the left-hand side. We then trained the model, so something called an autoencoder, which is a type of neural network. And then also set a threshold to say, you know, if I'm getting data that hits a certain threshold, then I'm going to classify it as an anomaly. And you can see on the 2 images, I don't know if any of you have been to New York, but that is what New York looks like if you plot every single taxi journey over the course of a couple of years on a map. And you can see Central Park is the little rectangle that's not colored in the middle. So those are all the start points, so the pickup points in purple, and in green you've got all the drop-off points. So second is the the model that allows us to predict periods of time that might be anomalous. So the first one allowed us to say this particular individual journey is strange because actually the taxi just stood there and had its meter on for about 10 hours, but didn't actually go anywhere. So that's the kind of thing it can identify. The second one is more about identifying unusual behavior over a period of time rather than one particular journey itself. And interestingly, we developed this model using data completely external to the taxi journeys themselves. So we thought, well, what actually impacts whether or not you're going to get a taxi on any one day? So you're probably going to get a taxi if it's pouring down with rain, so weather conditions. You're probably going to get a taxi if it's absolutely freezing cold outside and you just can't be bothered to walk, so temperature. And public events, you might not be able to get a taxi because the London Marathon's on and the road that you need to go down is closed. So all of these different external factors might impact whether or not someone would take a taxi that day. Same again, we train a neural network, and out of the neural network, we get something called principal component scores. So these are basically scores which have learned the behavior of taxi journeys. And then what we can do is plot these on a nice little picture. So these diagrams, so the black line represent taxi journeys over a period of time and what the actual data has learnt of a typical taxi journey. The blue line underneath it is our predicted taxi journey. So we can see what the model thought was, what the model thought. So what we can see is where there are big gaps between the black line and the blue line, these are what we flag as anomalous periods. So in the first picture, when I had a look at that period of time, actually turns out it was 4th of July weekend. So we were seeing that the model actually predicted there to be far more journeys because it didn't know it was 4th of July. And so we were able to successfully call that an anomaly. Similarly, the USA blizzard in 2016, our model didn't know it was going to happen. Our model can't predict that there's going to be a massive blizzard. And so it had a very big anomaly threshold there. So we were able to identify that. And then finally, Thanksgiving. Again, all three of these periods we were able to identify as being out of the norm. And so we can apply these techniques to real-world problems, and in particular military problems, where we might be trying to identify irregular behavior. Before I move on to the Defense AI Centers, I don't have any AI-specific questions. Awesome. OK, so, hand up over there.
Testing. OK. Hi, my name's Grace. I am particularly interested in international security and law, so this talk on defense systems is really interesting. I would like to know, I'm not sure how much you can provide on this answer, but I would like to know what BAE Systems' stance in terms of consulting is on providing accountability mechanisms within their defense and AI services. I know that's a really big deal in terms of big data and artificial intelligence. So I'd love to know if you have anything to say about that. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and explainability is something that can be quite hard to do with AI, and it's something that we, within the Defense AI Center, are looking at specifically. So one of the issues we have is that we have very operational users who are making very important critical decisions off the back of some of these models. And one way is that we always have to have human in the loop. So we never allow a model to make a decision. It can only inform. It can never actually, act upon that. So that's one of the things we do. The second thing is what we call having a robust verification and validation process. So that is where we demonstrate to our user community how a model has changed over time and what factors have changed, so that if today they make a decision based on model version 1, but model version 2 tells them something slightly different, we have a whole process that enables that person to go back and see what's changed over that time. And it's very complicated to do, and it's one of the reasons why a lot of our models and AI capabilities that we develop tend to stay in that experimental phase. And actually, I'll talk a bit about that now, is that it's very easy to experiment, but it's very hard to operationalize and productionize these things for that exact reason, is because people are scared. People are scared to get in a driverless car. People are scared to say, let's do this because my model said I should. And so at the moment, I work in the Defense Artificial Intelligence Center, and this new organization is started in June 2022. So we're very new, we're very small. But essentially, this government organization is all about defining how defense will adopt AI. And defense has been historically very, very good at innovating. So we're great at saying, let's create a new drone to do this, or let's build a new algorithm that's going to help these two people sitting here, but not as good at saying, well, actually, we want to put AI on the desktop of the entirety of the army. That's a very hard thing to do. So the Defense AI Center is all about getting over that valley of death. So we're great at doing prototypes, and we call it the valley of death because everything seems to get in a certain way and then fails because the system is too hard to get a tool onto, or the policy is too restricting, or people just don't understand what AI is at a senior leadership level within the military. So this is roughly what we do in the Defense AI Center. So Data Ops is where I sit, and we're all about operationalizing capability, scaling it, and getting it into the hands of as many end users as we possibly can. Data Ops Robotics, so we also have a robotics organization. There's a similar thing, but to do with autonomous systems. And then at the bottom there, you can see DakeX. So that is the innovation and experimentational part. So what we're trying to do is build that through life of experimentation right through to operationalization. So as an example, the project I'm currently working on is something that's featured in the Defense AI strategy. You can Google it, it's on the Gov website. And it's an object detection tool which allows imagery analysts to detect things like ships and vehicles automatically in images, and that helps to reduce their intelligence timeline. So rather than coming in on a Monday morning and having to count the number of boats that they can see in a picture, it's all done for them automatically. And that sounds really simple, and you're probably all looking at me thinking, oh my God, we should have been doing that about 10 years ago. But we're not. And that's the kind of point of the Defense AI Center, is to actually start getting ahead of the curve with some of this so that we can have that information advantage. And then finally, diversity and inclusion. So what is it actually like from a D&I perspective in defense? So I am usually the only woman. Yes, that's true. I'm usually the only person of color. Yes, that's true. And quite often, especially in defense, it can be increasingly hard to diversify a workforce because of the type of thing we do. But I'm part of the D&I committee within the Defense AI Center. We want to advocate that working in defense is something that everyone can get involved with. It's not it's not something that you need special clearances for, or it's not something that you need to have a tech degree or STEM degree for. We are lucky enough that we can hire from industry, from the civil service, Crown Service, and so we have such a massive pool of people that we can tap into. So these are just a few actions that we're taking to try and do that. So diversity in job adverts, so taking into account flexible working, we don't all want to do 9 to 5 every day, and making that happen. Co-working spaces, so promoting collaboration and, not just sitting in government offices in silos, but getting out there and seeing how the wider world works. So, Microsoft, Google, how do they foster collaboration and getting defense to learn from some of these bigger commercial organizations? So that's me all wrapped up. Does anybody have any questions on anything I've said today, or in particular anything more specifically about working in these environments?
Hi, I just want to ask, how long do projects usually take?
Was that how long do projects usually take?
Yeah.
Completely varied, to be honest, depending on a few factors. So, as an example, I worked on one project for 2.5 years because I absolutely loved it. I've been on my current project for only 6 months. I've been on a project for only 1 month. So that experimentation project that I spoke about earlier with the taxi journeys, that was just 1 month of work. So it entirely depends on the scale of the program and your role within it. So software engineering roles tend to be a bit longer because, there's a defined product that you need to build and a scope, and that's defined in terms of length of time. But I think as a consultant, it can range upon how much value you're adding as a person and how much value the customer is gaining from you. So it's very much driven by demand versus your own enjoyment. The organization is very happy to just allow you to move on if you're not enjoying a piece of work or you just want a change. So it's quite good in that sense.
Hi again. I just wanted to ask, because you mentioned the taxi cab example, I wanted to know if there are another example where you have, or where the tech industry, the defense tech industry in the UK has involved an intersectional approach or analysis to what security or defense actually means, security for who, defense for who, and what other factors are taken into account. I mean, we have, weapon systems and classic ideas of defense, but we're also talking about individual security, public space security. Do you have any examples where either gender, race, religion, anything like that is taken into account when considering your projects and what results that can reap? If that's quite clear, let me know if you need me to clarify.
Yeah, I think I get the question. So more often than not, diversity of teams so the traditional way of delivering tech is what we call waterfall, and is often delivered by what we call a prime, which means one supplier. So big BA systems will come in and will say, we're going to give you a team of 20 people to deliver this thing, and it's going to take 2 years, and this is what we're going to deliver. And that's how it's looked in the past. What organizations or government organizations are trying to do more now is be more aware that we need to have rainbow teams. And that means still picking larger companies like BAE Systems, but also getting startups involved and getting organizations who are lower in maturity to deliver alongside these kind of prime organizations. And that, by doing that, you're immediately inserting diversity of thought. You're increasing the types of people who can work on these projects, because as an example, to even work in BAE Systems as a defense consultant, you need a minimum of SC clearance, which is fairly easy to get your hands on, but some people can't. So it's how do we, so taking into account all of that, bringing in organizations who are more diverse to actually deliver the same technology, but with a variety of different people within that rainbow team. So that's what we're doing. I'm going to flip it on its head as well and give you another answer. So within defense itself, we talk a lot about the fancy operational stuff. So yeah, like you said there, missiles, weapons, drones, everyone wants to hear about that. But actually, a lot of the issues are things like exploiting HR data. And do we have a single system that records everyone's skills, and we know where to put where are all of our people? What are they doing at any one time? Are we using the best people in the right place? And so a lot of that is actually something that data science and artificial intelligence can help with. It's not the fancy, sexy stuff, but it's actually going to help our workforce more than anything else. And so part of that is understanding what the diversity of the workforce is and placing people in the right places to do the right job. So that's also something that we're looking at in terms of people and who exists and whether we're having them in the right place. Any other questions?
Hello? Okay, yeah, it's on. I thought I couldn't switch it on. Hi. So yeah, you mentioned that, often in your teams, you'll be the only woman and the only person of color within your team. So naturally, I guess for people who are looking to apply, who are from, what do we call, an ethnic background, maybe a woman, it's not so appealing, sort of when they see the team, not the position itself, not the opportunities, but the team. So do you know if there's a strategy in place or strategies in place to kind of address having more diverse recruitment? And if so, what that might look like, if you can share any of that?
Yeah,
Okay.
really, really, really good question. There are a number of different initiatives that I'm aware of. So the first one within BAE is we're partnering with an organization called Mindweaver. So Mindweaver themselves are a kind of intermediary recruitment company. So they recruit only people from minority backgrounds. So that could be minority in loads of different ways. It could be people with disabilities. It could be ethnic minority. And BAE Systems have an initiative to bring in a certain number of those people. So I've worked with people who have kind of gone through that scheme, and they speak incredibly highly of it. So not only is it a recruiting program, but they also put you through an intensive 1 month kind of data engineering course. So I don't know if any of you are interested in data engineering, but they'll basically train you on how to become a data engineer, and then plug you into a company like BAE Systems at the end of that training course. So we're actively, from a recruiting perspective, trying to use these different avenues, because we can't necessarily just rely on people applying directly to BAE Systems. We get what we get from external recruitment. So we're trying to work with these recruiting organizations to try and pull in more diversity from that respect. And also, it's diversity and inclusion are two different things. So despite the fact that I'm the most diverse person in my client team, I feel very included. So I've never felt excluded in that way. So I think, I've always worked in teams that are incredibly inclusive. So I think that's it for my time. I will be hanging around the BAE Systems stall for another half an hour or so before I head off. So if anyone wants to grab me over there, please feel free. But thank you, everyone, for being very engaging and interactive. And good luck with all of your career opportunities.